How do we find passive real estate investment opportunities? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about in this video right now. All right, so you're probably wondering, like, how do I create real passive income? And can I do it through real estate? What are those opportunities that I can have create passive income through real estate? What are the options? What are better? What are worse? Let's just dive into that right now. Okay, so first and foremost, you gotta understand, like, what is passive investing? Now, if you ask an accountant, they're gonna tell you passive investments or passive income is gonna be anything that's real estate based. And real estate based income that comes into you is classified as passive income. But I'm here to tell you, passive income can be anything but passive if you're not careful. Because there are so many people on TikTok and Instagram, even here on YouTube, that are telling you, hey, you know what? If you just do this kind of strategy, you just wholesale working 40,000+ hours a week, then you'll have passive income in real estate. Well, okay, maybe it's technically got some passive income because it's real estate based if they buy a property, but it may not feel passive at all to you. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, do I want just real estate income or do I want passive real estate income? That's the big difference. Now, I assume if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're like, no, I'd like to be a little bit more hands-off. I'd like to have a little bit more freedom with my time. I don't have to like spend 40+ hours a week or 80+ hours or whatever it might be doing it. Even if it's somewhat leveraged where people do fix and flip properties and things like that, you might just feel, well, is that really the thing I want to do? Is it something that really I just want to do for myself? Maybe not. And for example, I had a friend that lives right here in Utah and we were going out to lunch and they were talking about how they're doing fix and flips. And I would tell them, well, what if we do these passive opportunities where you don't have to do any of the work? And the husband, in his case, said, you know, but I like working on houses. That's what I do for a living. I'm a roofer. I really like getting in and getting dirty and doing this stuff. And I said, you know what? For you, doing this non-passive real estate investing, right, where you're doing fix and flips, might be perfect because you get joy out of it. Now, someone like me, on the other hand, who gets pretty frustrated and swears when he's trying to build some IKEA type furniture, or puts the the letters backwards. You ever see those letters when you're trying to assemble furniture from a store and you get like the letters switched around, so you have to tear it all apart and put it back together again? That's me. I'm the kind of person that should not be touching a house when it comes to trying to renovate a property or anything like that. I'd much rather have other people do it that are much more talented and probably safer with hand tools than I am for myself, okay? Because I will die if I use my own hand tools. And so that's the kind of person that I am. Be whatever you are on wherever you are on the spectrum. That's how you decide which kind of investments you're gonna do. If you love getting dirty, you love working with your hands, great, do some of that. In fact, active real estate income can make you more than passive income as well. But the thing is that it is gonna require some more energy, labor, time to give you that extra rate of return that you wouldn't get on the passive side. Now, if you're somebody else that says, you know what, Chris, I get you. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not as dangerous with tools as you are, but I really don't want to be working on these properties. I don't want to have to be spending all my time doing this. Well, then passive real estate investments can be a great option for you. All right, so what are the types of real estate passive investments that we've been talking about here? What are those passive real estate investments? Well, first and foremost, one, maybe you want to buy a property. Now, you could buy your own rental properties. Here's the problem I see people run into. When they buy their own properties, they're dealing with the tenants. They're trying to find good quality tenants. They're dealing with the contracts and the lease agreements and everything else. They're dealing with possible issues with labor. Now, they might have somebody that they know that could be the handyman or Mr. Fix-It or Mrs. Fix-It that can help with those properties. But at the end of the day, they're still fielding all these questions and issues that might come up. Now, it may not be daily, of course. Like if you had a tenant that's bugging you daily, you've got an issue. You've got a pretty bad tenant. But you're still dealing with those occasional issues that you have to address, right? When it comes up for lease renewal, you got to come up with a new agreement. Even if you have to change the date on it, maybe you have to up the rent. Maybe you're scared, like, do I want to increase the rent or not? And so, like many people I know that do what I call more active rentals, right, where they're more personally managing those properties, the problem you might run into is that you might say, well, now, like if I've got to raise rent, but what if they say no? What if I have to go find another renter? That's horrible. And so you keep the rent the same for another year. And maybe you've gone like 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row, keeping the rent the same when really everybody else around them is paying higher rent. Of course, they're not going to tell you, hey, you should raise my rent because, you're really not valuing yourself enough and valuing this property enough. No renter's going to say that. They're going to say, hey, if you don't value it, I'm going to keep paying, and as long as I can keep paying. And so for you, if you kind of struggle with that sort of thing or just struggle dealing with those issues, then what might be a better alternative is doing a turnkey rental. Now, a turnkey rentals are better in the sense that you can buy them anywhere in the country, if you're in the US, of course. Heck, even if you're not in the US, you could actually buy rentals in the United States, in any kind of state, and have somebody else manage the property for you. So they're dealing with the tenants. They're dealing with finding those quality tenants and screening through those people. They're the ones trying to figure out, how to deal with any possible repair issues. Yes, you might be the one footing the bill, but you're not the one having to go and make all the calls and deal with all that stuff. You just get sent the bill and move on with your life, right? So it's much more hands-off, much more passive. I still put that in the category of semi-passive when it comes to real estate investments because yes, you still have to manage the property manager. If you're not watching carefully, it's very possible they could get sloppy on something. They might do something you don't agree with, and you need to make sure you're at least on top of them. But it's not something you're going to do on a daily basis. This is something you might be doing on a monthly basis at most, right? Where you're checking in, make sure that everything's going well, and you know what's happening with the property manager. That's great. That's much more hands-off, much easier than being the person that's trying to go and build and renovate a project. Even though you can make more money there, you're spending a lot less time making more money for the time that you're investing into that effort. Now, what about real passive investments, right? Now, I was talking to somebody on the phone yesterday that they actually ask people for money. They are real estate investors that then borrow money to then lend out. Now, they'll pay a passive amount. They might pay 10% a year on that money. You give them money, they do all the rest, right? They're doing the work. Now, this requires an extra layer of trust, doesn't it? Because now you're separated from the investment. It's not like you own that investment. Now, there are ways to get ownership of the investment, and I'll get into that in just a second. But when you have that extra degree of separation, now you have to trust that person. And so if you're going to put your money with other people, be sure you do great due diligence on those people. How do you do that? One of the best ways to do it is one, find out what's their track record, what's their history, what have they been doing? Have they been in real estate, but they just started this kind of real estate, whatever it is that they're doing now, recently? If that's the case, beware. Buyer beware, investor beware, because those people are often going to make more mistakes and they're going to do it with your money instead of their own money. I'm all about trying to trust people, right? But I like to trust but verify, as Ronald Reagan used to say, right? I want to make sure that whatever happens, that these people guinea pig with their own money. They're testing it with their own money, doing that for years, going through ups and downs of market cycles, and then they ask me for my money. That's why I want people to have at least a 12 to 15 year track record doing that same kind of investment. That's what gives me more confidence when I put my money with those people. Now, there's other things you can do as well. For example, with lending, now some people might have lending funds where you might put it into a general fund and it's invested in different projects. There's a little bit of diversification there, but you could also put that money in a place such as, like into an individual type of real estate deal. So for example, I had one friend that he said, hey, do your clients, do they need any deals? I've got a deal right now where this property is worth $300,000 after I repair it, but all I need to borrow from them is about $200,000. Now think of it like this. If you're going to be an investor, you should think like you're the bank, because banks do an amazing job, a great job actually, in trying to field people. Now, sometimes banks make dumb mistakes. They get a little bit overly confident in what they do, and they get a little sloppy and do subprime loans and things like that. Even like when they give you a loan for your own mortgage, they might say, hey, 3% down. Well, there's not much equity there if something were to go wrong, and they have to take that property back and foreclose on you. Those banks are at high risk, aren't they? Well, you could become the bank and have less risk, right? Less risk in the sense that now you have more equity in that property. Because just like in my friend's case where he had a $300,000 property, and by the way, it's also good to verify to make sure that that property could actually sell for that much in that case. But he had a $300,000 property, he wanted to borrow $200,000, and then the investor, my clients, they would actually be on title, just like the bank would be if they go on your mortgage. If you've ever had a mortgage where obviously you get a mortgage from them, they're the one on title. If you fail to pay them monthly payments, they can take that property from you, foreclose on you, right? Take that property back and then try to sell it to get their money back. If there's enough equity, they're much more likely to foreclose on you, right? They're much more likely to do that. So the more equity you have in your property for your own house, the more likely they are to take it from you and then just try to sell it to get whatever money they can get back. Same thing for you as an investor. You could say, well, this property is worth $300,000. The loan is $200,000. That means I have 33% equity. A third of this money is equity. So even if this person fails to pay me, I have the legal obligation and right to foreclose on them to take that property back. Yes, I'll have to figure out how to sell on my own, find an agent or whatever in that area, but sell it to get my money back and probably make some profit too. So the one thing is very nice is when you have that, you have, and especially look for this, you want to make sure you're in what's called first position, or first trust deed is what the name of the document will be. You want to make sure that you're the first to get payback so that there's not any other loans on this, outstanding, other people that have lent them money. Because if you're in second position, it's like a second mortgage, you get paid second in priority, which means you may get little to nothing depending on what happens. But if you're first position, right, even if it means they pay you a little bit less interest, that might give you that peace of mind, that comfort to know, yes, if anything goes wrong, if they don't pay me, that property's mine. I have a real asset, a tangible asset that I can turn around and sell and make that money back, and probably then some after that too. So that's one great way you can be able to do that and be a very passive investor. Again, the passive part is the money making part. The active part is I need to make sure I do the right due diligence and find the right people. The next best thing is if you don't have all that network of people, you can find somebody else who does. That's what we do at Money Ripples. We actually have our own network of people we've vetted over the last really 15 plus years as we've been doing this. And so you can either create your own or you can borrow somebody else's, like a company like ours or somebody else out there. Now, there's other things you can be doing too. It doesn't just have to be about the property. Like I mentioned with lending, it could be a lending fund. You could be lending your money into a fund that can go into different projects, even different parts around the country, so that creates a little bit more safety and diversification. You could also do a partnership. You could partner with somebody who is doing the active real estate investing, and maybe you're an equity partner. Now there's two ways you can do this. Either one, you're directly a partner on a real estate project or deal, or two, you're in what's called a syndication. Now, syndication is where multiple investors pool their money together to then go in on a bigger project, usually like apartment buildings, self-storage. It could be even oil and gas investments, buying land or whatever it might be. You're going into a bigger project. Even people will do sometimes assisted living homes and things like that. All kinds of ways you can make money by going in as partners, as equity partners. Just know this is a warning though. As I mentioned before about the debt part, right? When you're lending your money, debtors get paid first. If you're the lender, right? If you're the person that's being lent, that you're lending the money to, you get paid before even the equity people get paid. So just know that there's a little pecking order. They call it a waterfall. There's a pecking order of who gets paid first if something goes wrong. So just know as an equity investor, yes, you get a lot of the upside potential, and sometimes that's more than just like a contractual percentage that they'll give you. But also understand too that also means if something goes wrong, it's possible you could lose all your money. And just so you know, even though these things are passive, even though these things are backed by real assets, you could lose money anytime. Yes, that's for you, you little investment regulators. Yes, there is risk in real estate, just like anything else. So that's why you've got to be very careful, do the right due diligence, and make sure that you're doing those things that help you be able to make more money and do it safely too. And there are ways to absolutely do that. So as I mentioned, you can always go to moneyripples.com, find out like, what are ways I can do this? Are there ways I can borrow somebody else's network to be able to find these great deals? Also, try the passive income calculator while you're there to see how much passive income you could create in the next 12 months, what's really possible in your situation. The answer might surprise you. So try that at moneyripples.com right now.